Everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next I'll need a motion for the adoption of the agenda. So moved. Motion by Romano, support by Lucido. Oh, our chair is here. All in favor, vote.
Let's go to all vote for the agenda. Okay, thanks. Item passes. Item number 4, approve the minutes. Need a motion for that. Moved by Gillette, supported by Carabelli. Please vote on the minutes. Minutes are passed. Public participation. Anyone from the public wish to address this body? Anyone from the public? Seeing no one from the public. Budget reviews, Board of Commissioners. Mr. Schmiegel.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Good to see you all again. The board office budget's on page C19. I'm not going to say very much at all because there's really not much to say.
Really? Is that good or bad?
No new positions. The budget's going up 2%, which is basically wages and all the associated fringe benefits that we've talked about. So there's really very little change. Operating wise, I think we cut $1,000 or something out of operating costs. So.
Okay, does Chair Smith want to speak to this, or Patty at all?
Yeah, Patty has everything that we've been discussing. She'll talk a little bit as to what's gone on this year and what's planned for next year.
Okay.
Quickly.
Yes. So if you look at your screens, you'll just see a little general review of what we all know. Sometimes maybe need to be reminded. We actually have an additional budgeted position from what you see every day, which is our communications coordinator, and that's a vacant position at this point. And then our contract assistance is independent counsel and financial analyst. Those are paid for by contract services. An update on office procedures from the last year. All positions have been cross-trained, so you have noticed perhaps some of us cycling in and out and sitting in different spots, and that's to make sure that we all know how to do everything. We have a real team-oriented approach to all our projects and events, which has worked out great. Our technical and production expertise has been raised exponentially. How-to manuals have been put together, mostly by Mike, and he's done a great job with those. Crystal and I have made it a point to cover some of the regional events so that we have a presence there. And our constituent relations and our outreach activities have increased over this past year. These are your official duties for the commissioners. J is of particular interest. I mean, you can do anything you want. The two other areas that speak to your powers are from the charter as well as from the Court of Appeals decision. So as you know, you as a board are the primary fiduciary of county funds, and I thought it might be a really good review to see how things have evolved over the past number of years. In 2011, when we took over this type of government structure, there wasn't anything for those of you who weren't here. So everything had to be, it wasn't spelled out in particular, and so the board kind of worked through all of these things as the years have gone by. And the systematic tracking of planned projects is the latest improvement you guys have made to your fiduciary oversight. The board has implemented an agenda management program, as you know, and it does all of these things that are listed in front of you. And I thought it might be good to review that you guys were instrumental in forming the Human Services Coordinating Council. That was like 27 years ago. The Health Styles Committee came from the board. Casual Day Charitable Contribution Program is still going strong. In fact, we have a call out for nominations. So if you know a worthy organization, please let us know. The Green Schools Program is now 11 years strong. Yoga at the Hill, we've got 3 years behind us, and we have our Older Adult Advisory Committee, which is one of the newer additions to our programming. So moving forward, these were the 5 legislative priorities that you guys set in place and reaffirmed this year for the budget review process, and you are about 2/3 of the way through. And for the board office activities, the legislative priorities tie in pretty well. So there are 5 things listed that are kind of general. We're going to expand and implement the proper use of the agenda management system. We're going to research best practices, participate in regional discussion and collaboration activities even further. We're going to evaluate proposed legislation for local impact, examine existing programs, and continue to modify according to current and future needs, as well as our changing demographic here in the county. We'll take proactive measures to ensure needs of our constituencies are met. And we're going to maintain our connection with the constituencies through updated channels of communication. And what that really means is we're going to mandate the use of civic clerk by additional boards and commissions, build collaboration groups with staff from peer counties. We plan to implement monthly outreach activities in districts between yourselves and our OAAC representatives. By the way, we do have our first pilot activity next Monday in District 11. Hopefully you can come and send people to attend as well. Recognizing that people don't consume news the way they used to, even 2-3 years ago. So we are building additional channels through which we can share our messages. And we're going to look to create additional advisory committees and outreach groups. So if you have any questions about the budget specifically, the office operations, or any of our plans.
Okay, thanks a lot, Patty. Commissioner Drollet?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Patty. This might be to Steve. I'm looking at the budget summary page that's distributed every year, and it looks like from 2013 through 2016, there's sort of a slight gradual decline in spending by the Board of Commissioners, and then it starts going up again in 2017 or so. It's just nominal, but do you have any idea what drove that sort of decline over those couple of years, and what's changed? Has it been the hiring of our legal staff, or?
I know a few things.
One of those would be you added a staff person in 2017, plus the board chair got an increase.
Okay.
Of about, I don't know, $25,000 or $30,000, I believe, which over time, if you look back a few years, then you're gonna see a spike there. I think the operating costs have remained relatively consistent.
Okay, so those are probably
Yeah.
the 2 drivers you can think of.
And again, you've got waging or benefit costs and things we've talked about for 2019 specifically.
We would have had those in 13, 14, 15, 16, when the
Right, but in
budget was
19,
going
you're gonna see a
down.
little bit more of a spike again because of compensated absences and liability insurance.
Okay. Did your office, Steve, prepare this document here?
Yeah, Steve
So,
did.
Steve, why did you put nothing under accomplishments? Just, that's all. Thanks very much.
Very funny, Leon.
You don't want me to answer that, or?
Actually, I can, and to further expound on that, we had this major renovation, and we had to meet elsewhere. So we increased our costs, having to print a lot more. We had certain supplies that we had to get, and then when we moved back in here, there were things that were done, but not all the way done. So there were other expenses about 2016, 2017.
Commissioner Romano?
Thank you, Chair. Geez, without giving him too much of a big head, you know, we have 13 commissioners here, and having 13 people in a committee, you always need someone to steer that committee or chair it. And we have that in Chair Smith. And I'm speaking for myself personally, but I think I speak for a lot of the board members when I says I shouldn't tell him that. He's going to get a big head. He really does a great job. I mean, he disseminates the information to us as soon as he gets it. He's made some real good moves forward for this whole committee, for this whole board. He's done some things that hasn't been done in the past that should have been done, and he's continually doing it. And I think he's making us all a lot more knowledgeable of what we can or can't do. And I, for one, appreciate it because I'm a newbie, so to speak, on the board. This is my second year, but I am a newbie. I hope to be here next year. We shall see. But in the meantime, I think Mr. Smith has done an excellent job, and I want to commend him for it. Thanks, John. You're welcome. That's all I got.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown?
Well, what he said. But in addition to that, also, let's not forget our board staff's doing a good job, led by Patty. You've been a guardian angel on many times, and we call you, figure a way to get it done for us. Not a lot of lead time often, speaking for myself personally. But I just want to thank you on the record that you do a fine job for this board. You have for a long time, and without you managing the staff the way you have, we'd be a lot looser organization. So I want to say thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate that, but that's also indicative of having a really great, strong team.
Well, I
So these
got
guys are
that.
great.
I got that, but it starts with leadership. Thank you.
Thank you for not saying that I'm senior.
I would never say that.
Just a quick question. Help me to remember, why did our contract services go up from 2017 to 2018? Mr. Schmiegel.
Well, the 17 is an actual number, the
Right.
18 is a budgeted number. And I also think that you transferred 30,000 from the clerk's office into the board office for the printing of the county directories.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
And
Any-
that money has remained in the board office budget for 2019 as well.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Any other questions, commissioners? Seeing none, we need a motion to receive and file. Moved by Romano, supported by Kraft. Please vote. Thanks, Patty. Next, we have Ethics Board, Dr. Donald Amboyer, Ethics Board Chair. And Mr. Schmiegel.
Oh, Ethics Board, page C34, my comments will be even less and fewer than on the board office. The budget for the Ethics Board is about 11 million, or 11,600 for 2019. We've reduced that by about $3,000 from 2018, based on spending. We want to leave a little bit of money in supplies and services. We've remained or kept the $10,000 budget for contract services, which Dr. Amboyer can speak to, or any other questions on the budget.
Okay. Hello, Doc.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the board. And it's a pleasure to be here again. It's not often that we have an opportunity to speak at the Ethics Board and to share with you some of our experiences. Just by means of quick review, the Ethics Board came into being, as you're all aware, by vote of the people. The Ethics Board became apparent and came into effect as a consequence of the charter in 2009. The first ordinance came into being, the Ethics Ordinance, in January of 2011. A provision within the original ordinance called for the Ethics Board to propose a rules of procedure to the Board of Commissioners to be followed in terms of any advisory opinions or complaints to be filed. Consequently, the Ethics Board did make several appearances before the Board of Commissioners at that time, and consequently, the Ethics Rules of Procedure came into being in 2012. As you're aware, the Board of Commissioners, by virtue of growth and experience with the ethics provisions, made a change, developed a new ethics ordinance that came into being in 2016, which in effect negated in many respects the rules of procedure that was previously approved by the Board of Commissioners. So that's some quick, brief background as it directly or indirectly relates to the budget. When the Ethics Board felt that responsibility and monies were appropriated within the budget to provide basic training, we developed a learning management system. From my experience at the college, we developed an online learning program. that we offered through the courtesy and working with Human Resources and Labor Relations for all elected officials, appointed officials, and county officials in the county of Macomb, so that they're more familiar with not only the charter, but in particular the ethics ordinance when they first became employed. So they had an understanding in terms of what was ethical behavior and non-ethical behavior insofar as the ordinance itself. The monies was appropriated to deliver that program. But unfortunately, with the change in the ordinance, that, like the rules of procedure, was no longer effective. So currently, we don't have a training program that's available for newly elected officials, appointed officials, and general county employees when they became employed by the county of Macomb. We're hoping to work in conjunction with Corporation Council and the Board of Commissioners to propose a revision to the ethics ordinance. And if in fact that's able to be accomplished in the coming year, then we're hoping again to work in conjunction with the Board of Commissioners, the Corporation Council, Human Resources, Labor Relations, and the Planning Department to again offer an online training program for all newly elected, appointed, and general county employees so they're familiar with the ethics ordinance. The whole premise of the ethics ordinance has really been about prevention. It hasn't been about sanctions for violating, but to prevent any kind of unethical behavior on the part of public servants. And that's really been our focus in the ethics board, is to work on ensuring that there's prevention. And there's been a prevention of a lot of potential unethical behavior. But the county of Macomb, as I hope that you're aware, has really been a leader in this whole area of ethics, and developing an ethics ordinance and having an ethics board that's independent in many respects of county government to enforce certain provisions of the ethics ordinance throughout the nation. I've been contacted. I do a lot of consultant work for the U.S. Department of Justice in another area, but I've been contacted by various counties throughout the nation relative to consulting with them and developing and implementing their ethics ordinance, largely based upon the good experiences that we've had in Macomb County. And a lot of valuable experience has transpired. We've all learned from past experiences. We're on the verge, I hope, of updating the ethics ordinance, eliminating some of the legalese, if you will, and making it more understandable so that at Thanksgiving time, when a vendor approaches county employees or elected officials with a turkey, do you accept the turkey or you don't accept the turkey? Or free golfing, or at Christmas time, do you accept a bottle of wine or you don't accept a bottle of wine? Questions about nepotism and a variety of other topics that are in the current ordinance that could help to be revised. So consequently, in the proposed budget for 2019, we are requesting an additional $10,000 for professional development if the ethics board can make it available or can participate in professional development itself. If there's Michigan Association of Counties or other organizations such as NACOR, the Michigan Association of County, has workshops available for ethics board members. There's monies available for workshops and professional development for them, as well, again, as working to develop an online training program. The ethics board is, among all the departments in the county, it probably has the smallest budget and has spent the least. We're all volunteers. There's no per diems. We're not paid. You have no idea how many hours there are contributed by people that are serving on the ethics board, particularly this past year with different situations have risen and that you're well aware of. But there's been a lot of time and effort that's been involved. There's been a lot of learning that's taking place as a consequence of dealing with the former county clerk, former commissioner of public safety or services. We've learned a lot, and therefore we have a lot of recommendations to make in terms of changes, but also the training that needs to transpire and take place. For the first, we've been in existence now for the last 7 years. The first several years, the annual budget was $59,000. As you know from material that's been presented to you, the current proposal is $14,600, which we fully understand. Because we're taxpayers as well as citizens of Macomb County. We're quite frugal. So far this year, year-to-date, the Ethics Board has only spent $302.45 out of a budget of $14,600. That is a consequence of no longer having the training program, not having a learning management system, and fees that were associated with that, as well as not doing marketing among general county employees and public services to make available certain information, printed material, if you will, about the Ethics Board and its purpose. So with that, if the amount is appropriated by the Board of Commissioners, whatever it might be, we truly respect that. We respect your efforts, and whatever funds are made available to us, we'll attempt to work with. We also understand the good working relationship. Not only do we have a corporation counsel, but the finance department, and if in fact there's a need for outside counsel, which we might need in the future, we came very close with the former county clerk in requesting outside counsel, but fortunately we were able to, again, work with corporation counsel and others to resolve some situations and save some money by not having to go to those resources. But nevertheless, we do understand, and we would appreciate the opportunity of appearing before the board in the future if we need additional monies for professional development, outside counsel, or whatever particular needs the Ethics Board might need. But in the meantime, we are quite frugal, and we attempt to do the best that we can on behalf of not only the Board of Commissioners, but more importantly, the citizens of Macomb County. If there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thanks for coming here today, Don. Chair Smith has some questions.
Thanks, Don, for showing up. I actually don't have any questions. I just wanted to inform you that Corporation Counsel, both John and Frank, have been also working on the ethics ordinance. I know we have a kind of almost finalized document that I'm going through to double check to make sure that recommendations that you and others have requested are either in there or there's a reason why they're not in there. And I'll hopefully be getting that to you and everybody within the next few days.
Good. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to provide input and to assist the Board of Commissioners, Corporation Counsel, and whoever else might be involved in the process, because it's beneficial to the whole county if we're able to do that. I appreciate it, sir.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Drollet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Dr. Embroyer, for your service and that of the rest of the Ethics Board. It's greatly appreciated. Just one quick question. Has there been challenges in filling the Ethics Board with people applying to be part of the board when there's vacancies? And if there has been, or even if there hasn't been, is there a way, do you think, would a per diems help? I mean, nobody's talking about getting anybody rich, but I mean, is there any way that we could make it easier to fill vacant positions or even broaden the list of applications in some capacity?
Right. The county executive has been outstanding in many respects and has attempted to recruit people to serve on the Ethics Board. It has been a challenge for him and his staff to recruit people. As you know, we have a fairly large turnover in finding volunteers. I think one of the issues is really the time that's been involved. It's been when the meetings are held. There's also questions about, like for instance, in the original ethics ordinance, there was a provision enabling the Sheriff's Department to assist with investigations. If in fact there was transgression that allegedly occurred, the Ethics Board could call upon the Sheriff's Department to help with the investigation. That was removed from the ordinance, so people on the Ethics Board are concerned about their own personal liability, inability to investigate, not having a criminal justice or a law enforcement background, not understanding due process, if you will. There's been some hesitancy in that regard too, but some people are wanting to, we don't get mileage, we don't get any recognition. We're there when there's trouble, and we work on behalf of the county, but yet there's not even mileage, or we were hesitant, should we even ask for money to go to a workshop that SimCog might put together, the council, or something like that, would they give it to us? I mean, I hate to be like that, but so I think anything to recognize or even to nominate the Ethics Board for a NACO award, or it's some kind of small, and I'm not looking for me, believe me, I don't want it, don't need it. I'm just speaking on behalf of other members of the board and things that have come up over time, Commissioner, so.
Doctor, could I?
Leon, point of information, I just wanted to tell you that I have a charter sitting in front of me, and it does say under the Board of Ethics that the Ethics Board members shall or serve without compensation. So that, might at least end your question about the stipends or something like that. I'm not sure.
It
how
does
that plays out
clarify it. I
further,
mean,
yeah.
but I understand the concern that Dr. Embroyes expressed, and I've just personally wondered. I mean, I realize that in my few interactions, that the board has to meet, to take people out of work potentially. They have to sit there for a certain period of time. Can I ask how many times the ethics board has met in like the last 12 months? I mean, you don't have to be exact, but.
Well, the Ethics Board, I think, is, in total, has met 10 times over the last 12 months.
Okay.
Like once not in the summer and then at the holidays. But that's only the meetings. But there's at least a half a dozen phone calls that come in about unbelievable questions that the public raises. So it's just, the judge won't allow me to change my hearing date, although I've been affected by Hurricane Florence, or I'm going through a divorce. I'm getting all kinds of things that don't pertain to the ethics ordinance, but the public is calling and acting upon. So there's a lot of time. It's not just the meetings, it's other activities that are in support of the Ethics Board and the work that we have volunteered to do.
I know you dealt with some somewhat higher profile ethics issues in the last year involving the clerk and others. How long have some of those meetings gone?
Well, some of them gone like 2-3 hours at the most. Of course, and we're dealing with quasi-judicial matters, and being a civil proceedings, they're quasi-judicial, they're among volunteers, but they've gone for extensive period of time, plus the preparation and the research prior to the meetings, the potential for questions, the responding to the questions that have transpired during those hearings and meetings and so on. There's a fair amount of time that's consumed.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I hope that our board chair is in communication as a new ethic ordinance is being developed, and he certainly issued some clarification as far as what, if the charter prohibits compensation, that kind of limiting, but
Sure.
maybe there's some things we can do to try and help to further recognize the ethics board's long time and voluntary contributions.
Well, we really do appreciate that, and we really do appreciate the services of Corporation Counsel, the Finance Department, Human Resource and Labor Relations, and in particular the Secretary for Mr. Anderson, who provides her clerical assistance. She's not compensated any extra for that, but it's really a team effort, a group effort among county employees. I've been employed by the county, well, not employed now, but I was first employed by the county over 40 years ago, and there's a certain loyalty and allegiance that I have to the county and kind of giving back, if you will. So I'm not interested in compensation that way, but I feel as a citizen and proud to have worked for Macomb County and to further its ideals. I love it, I really do. So personally, I'm not looking for any kind of compensation or anything of that nature.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Kleinfeld.
First of all, I think we should take a pause of silence to remember this day that Commissioner Gillette suggested something be paid for in the budget that isn't already. You indicated when you were speaking the budget at 14,006, and it's actually going down from 14,600 to 11,600 in the recommended budget. Are you aware of that?
I am, and I misspoke, ma'am. I am aware of it. It is 3,000 less, and I understand the rationale for it, especially when we've only spent $300 so far this year.
Okay. This is for Steve, and I know I asked this question before with regard to another department, but we've had some departments that have conferences and training and it's blank, and then we have other departments that don't have the line item. And this department doesn't have the line item, and I'm just wondering why we do that. Why do some departments have the line item and it's left blank, you know, dashes for no money, and other departments don't contain the line item? You don't remember my asking
Yeah,
about
generally
this?
speaking, if a department hasn't had any historical spending in the last 2 actual years and no requests for the upcoming 3 years or the current year, we shouldn't have a line displayed at all. Yeah, otherwise it would be a very ugly budget, very confusing. Typically, in any kind of financial reporting, if it's all zeros, you don't display it.
Okay. Right, he has indicated, and I mean, perhaps you could use contract services about training for the actual people who sit on the ethics board. You know, maybe they could go to a seminar that they wanted to go to, or something with SEMCOG or something of that nature. Would that fall under conferences and training, or would
Yeah,
it?
we would make a budget adjustment and transfer that money to conferences and seminars.
Okay.
If that's what they so chose to
So
use
maybe
the money
that's
for.
a discussion that you
Yeah.
guys might have with each other.
Exactly.
Okay. And just for Commissioner Drillette, historically, prior to the last couple of years, a lot of people called about questions with regard to ethics, but there weren't any formal complaints. There was a period of, three years, I think, where they weren't having to address anything. That has changed in the last couple of years pretty significantly. There's been a number of things in the last couple of years, but just for historical, when it went up and then it went down. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sauger.
Yeah, Doctor, you did a phenomenal job when you was at the Sheriff's Department. You know, there was not a problem you didn't address. But what I like to see somewhere down the road, and Steve can get involved with this, I'd like to see some of these boards, yours included, to be compensated for something. You know, to me, the day of just giving free and trying to get free help, it's going to bite us in the butt sooner than later. And I really wish he would look at it sometime. It ain't going to happen tomorrow or next month, but sometime soon, so we can keep people on these boards. And my last question is, how many hours do you think you put in there, about a week or a month?
I don't know. Ask my wife, Commissioner. She tracks that, and I hear about it from her. So there's quite a few hours. In response to Commissioner Kleinfeld, there has been an upsurge in complaints. Believe me. There was one year where we didn't have any, but this last year, particularly the early part of this year, the end of 2017, 2018, there's been an upsurge of complaints. There's been a lot of ludicrous complaints by a lot of people that don't fall within the realm of the ethics ordinance. Unbelievable things that just don't pertain, but there has been an upsurge. On the other hand, though, the ethics ordinance and the way in which we've handled it has prevented a lot more from occurring. So in order to measure what we do and how well we're doing it, in all honesty, I don't think it's fair to measure by the number of advisory opinions that have been requested, the number of complaints that have been requested, but rather by the number of inquiries. And I've logged them all from the very beginning. There's been hundreds of telephone calls and mails and email and so on we've responded to that have prevented complaints from transpiring. And they've been satisfactorily resolved. There's been a lot of referrals to county departments and department heads who have worked very closely in conjunction with us to resolve matters, as opposed to getting full-blown ethics ordinance violations and complaints from taking place and being, quite frankly, an embarrassment and to the county and being very costly to the county. We've prevented a lot, but that doesn't necessarily show in the number of formal complaints that have been filed. So I would respectfully submit that what's been prevented is more important than what's been complained about, with all due respect.
Thank you, Marv. Any other questions, comments for Dr. Amboyer? Seeing none, we need a motion to receive and file. Moved by Carabelli, supported by Drollet. Please vote. Thank you for coming here today, Don. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Item 7, correspondence. I do not see any, unless I'm wrong. Pending litigation, Corporation Counsel, none. Item 9, we need a motion to commemorate the 40th anniversary of the Ukrainian Cultural Center, moved by Duje, supported by Sauger. Any words on this, Commissioner Duje? You're Ukrainian, with a large population in Warren. Any few words on this?
Thank you. This is in regards to the Ukrainian Cultural Center, that's been around for 40 years. It's done a tremendous job, not only for the Ukrainian community but for the community in Warren and surrounding areas at large. If anybody wants to sign in on this, I'd appreciate it. But they're commemorating the 40th anniversary, and they've done a tremendous job. And I appreciate this board issuing a proclamation for them.
Very good.
Thank you
Just
very much.
one question. The Ukrainians in Warren, when did they immigrate here from the Ukraine? 40 years ago, or just all different time periods?
My parents came over in 1949, but the original immigration, if you will, was right about 1900.
Really?
At
In
the end of the
Warren area?
Into the Detroit area,
Really?
if you will. The last time I heard, and this is going back about 5 or 6 years, SEMCOG had done taken a look how many Ukrainians there are in the southeast Michigan area, and came up with about 30,000. So there's a whole bunch of people of Ukrainian descent in this area.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Please vote
Mr. Chair, I'd like to join Commissioner Duje on that, please.
on the resolution.
Yes.
Okay, without objection.
Thank you very much.
You put something in there for the Italians?
Just barely.
Okay.
Only if you can do it with your hands.
I'll vote for you.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay, great. Item number 10, any new business, commissioners? Any new business?
Well, here.
Chair Smith?
Just for a second, Commissioner Drollet and Commissioner Carabelli and I continued the meetings with the executive's office today about different items that we've been discussing. We'll get something together for you. There's nothing really new going on. There's just little talk about budget, some talk about some potentials for the 911 fee, different things like that. So nothing really to report unless either one of you think there is. Please feel free, but we are continuing these meetings.
Thank you, Chair. Any other new business? Seeing none, we'll go into public participation. Seeing no one from the public, we need a motion to go into closed session to discuss pending litigation. Moved by Lucido, supported by...
It's got to be named, so I've got the litigation in front of me.
Well, you're talking about reading it all?
No, you just have to say motion to go into closed session on pending litigation, Summit v. Pharma. You just have to name the litigation.
Right, and I was gonna do that.
Oh,
so
I'm
we have-
sorry, I
right.
didn't have it on my agenda.
So, well, we do have a motion. I guess I'm gonna have to read that, and then we'll take the vote if that's okay. So closed session to discuss County of Macomb,
He said-
Michigan versus Purdue Pharma LP, Cephalon and Company. I'll try and do my best to read these. Do I have to read all these, Corp Counsel? No. So what am I reading this for? I can't hear you.
It's been named. We're good.
All right, so we're good with that. I don't need to read more. Okay, thank you. Please vote for a closed session, commissioners. Thank you. Moved by Sauger, supported by Kleinfeld. Motion to adjourn.
Oh, my man.
Leon and Touche missed it. See you tomorrow. I tricked them.